Hello, you guys. So, I am really excited for today because I have with me Florida's.
I am really
Oh,
excited
wait, I can hear myself. Hold on. I
because
have with
I have
I
with
have with me Florida's um,
Florida.
20th congressional district's candidate, Shelly Fain. We're hoping to get her on the ballot. I believe that she needs 2,000 in-person signatures. She probably doesn't need all 2,000 now, but if you're in Florida and you're in any of the counties that we'll be talking about, make sure that you get out and sign so we can get her on the ballot. You can also donate because that's the other way that we can get her on the ballot is if you donate to her campaign. It's $7,000 to get her on to the ballot. And I just wanted to introduce her to everybody today, as well as her political party, which has a very interesting mission that I've actually seen work in South America. So I'm pretty excited about that, to talk about that. And I have some rapid fire questions for her because even if maybe you don't rock with the political party, you know that you don't always have to vote a party, right? You can vote um, the issues and who's going to best represent what you want to see happen in office. So those rapid fire questions will help us get to know the kind of platform that she's running on and the kind of votes that she'll put forth if we can get her into Congress. So I want to make you little and I mean me little and you big. Let me figure out how to do that. But in the meantime, in between time, would you mind just introducing yourself, telling us what party that you're running under, and also you guys will go more in depth about the party, like I said, in a little bit. But if you could still just give a brief idea, I'd appreciate that.
Sure, no problem. Thank you so much for having me on. So, my name is Shelly Fain, and I am a candidate for the House of Representatives District 20, which is here in South Florida. There's a number of different counties and well, I won't say counties. There's one county, it's Broward County, and there's at least 12 cities that are in the district, which is District 20. Um, I was introduced to the Mahali Party very recently because prior to that, I did not have a party affiliation. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I am an independent. And a lot of my views, I personally feel really don't align with the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. So I did not have a party until recently, which is the Mahali Party. And just to give you a little bit of understanding of what the Mahali Party is, Mahali stands for the land. And our ancestors, way back when, they always felt like we would have a promised land here, right here in the United States. So there's three states in particular that they wanted to be the promised land, and that is Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi. And one of the goals of the party actually is within an 8-year time span, they would like for those three states to actually succeed from the Union and for us to start a nation right here in the United States within those three states. So that is the ultimate mission of the party. As far as where I am right here in South Florida right now, at the moment, I am in alignment with Mahali Party views, and my agenda is a heavily pro-Black agenda. And the reason for that is because, just going through the communities, I'm seeing that our people, our communities are being heavily neglected by politicians in DC. And I honestly feel that we are in a critical situation right now to where if we don't do something, and I mean almost instantly, we're going to see ourselves faced with a soft genocide. And what I mean by that is today in particular, I was talking to some gentlemen in one of the cities in my district. And one of the things that he said to me was that he was inspired to see someone stepping up to the plate for our communities and being willing to take a Black agenda to DC. And, he did explain to me that the developers are moving in very, very quickly to displace Black people from their communities. And there isn't enough pushback on that. So that is what I am here to do. I am here to go to DC with an agenda that will prevent Black people from being left behind and largely ignored. how how we've seen happen in the past with other political parties. Every time someone wants to bring forth a Black agenda or asks the current administrations what is their plans for the Black community, they either dance around the question or they just say they don't have an agenda at all. And I feel that that is detrimental to our community. I think it's completely unfair that we are part of this nation and we are not getting the proper representation. So for me, I just felt like I needed to get into this position in order to help our communities because obviously and largely within DC right now, we don't really see anyone speaking up for us. So that was pretty much my motivation behind running.
Thank you. So for those of you just coming in, I just want to let you know who we're speaking with right now. So we're speaking with Shelly Fain. She's running for the 2022 Florida's 20th Congressional District in a special election that's being held because recently in April of this year, the incumbent Democratic Representative, Alcee Hastings, died of pancreatic cancer. So they're holding a special election. The election's to be held on January 11th, 2022, and the primary elections will be held November 2nd, 2021. Is all that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And when do we need to have the signatures that are required or the funds that are required to ensure that you make it onto that ballot for the November 2nd primary
Okay.
election?
The petitions they need to be signed within the next week and a half. Honestly, and the money as well. Because what I don't want to happen is I don't want people to have to write me in on the ballot. It's going to make it a lot harder for me to
Mm.
place. So those petitions, which we need to gather, I believe at least about 1,500 more within the next week and a half. We've been having a lot of progress with getting petitions. A lot of people are receptive to what it is that we're doing because people in the community are looking for change. So people have been very receptive. And anyone listening, if you know anyone within the district living in the Fort Lauderdale area, Sunrise, Miramar, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, um, what is the other one? The other one is up north, Pahokee or Belle Glade. Please let them know about me. We are willing to drive to them to get them to sign a petition, and we do plan on going up north next week. So I will send you an email, Irene, if you would share it, where I'll have locations of where we'll be around the city. So if people are available to come out and sign, they'll be able to do that as well. On Thursday, we are going to be in the Fort Lauderdale area. So if people want to come out, we'll be at a few different locations, and I will send that information as well. Or the $7,000, which is the quickest way to do it, because with the $7,000, you just get placed on the ballot without having to get the petitions. That will also be needed coming up here in about roughly 2 weeks. But 2 weeks is the absolute deadline. After that, the only way for me to place will be for people to write me in on the ballot. And like I said, obviously we don't want to do that because it just makes it a little bit more difficult. If people see my name on the ballot, then they don't have to write me in. So that's what we're pushing for. Again, that's about another week and a half. 2 weeks is the complete deadline. Where either we need to raise $7,000 in funds so that I can just go ahead and be placed on the ballot, or we need those 2,000 signatures. So it's crunch time, and we've been pounding the pavement every day to make sure that we're able to do that.
Excellent. So just to reiterate before we get to these rapid fire questions, um, you can go to Shelly's website, electshelly.com. Super simple to remember. It's pinned at the top of the comment section. I've also been dropping it in the comment section as this live has been going. We need to get some in-person signatures. 1,500 more are needed to get her on the ballot. Also, I really encourage simply donating to the campaign. The thing is, either she'll get the signature she needs or she'll have the money she needs. I'm pretty sure that anything that's donated to her campaign, if she doesn't have to pay to get onto the ballot, then that money can go to actually running the campaign so that she can be competitive in that January 11th special election. So, with that said, let's get to know our candidate, right? If you're in Florida,
Yes.
right? If you're in the 20th congressional district, this is your candidate. And so let's get to see where she stands on some political issues because, again, it's not about the party, right? It
Right.
is about the policy. So let's see how she will represent um, Florida residents in her district when she makes it to Capitol Hill, which we hope to see her there, right?
Yes.
So let's start with the first question. Do you think the Second Amendment should be repealed?
No. Um, I absolutely do not believe that that should be repealed. I feel like that people have the right to protect themselves. I know that there's a lot of people out there that use, you know, do things that they should not do. I'll just put it that way. But I don't feel like that law abiding citizens should pay the price for people who make silly decisions. We all have the right to carry. And I honestly feel like that's something that should not be taken away.
If since you don't, then do you think there should be any new gun restrictions to deal with um, what some people are claiming is an epidemic of mass shootings?
I believe that to a certain extent, there should be more screenings, yes, because what we hear a lot of times is this or that person had a mental illness. So I do think that maybe more extensive background checks should take place so that people who are ill in that way should not be out there not within their right mind and carrying a gun. So yes, just more of a process where they'll be able to screen better, but to take away, absolutely not.
Would you support a preemptive strike on North Korea as part of an attempt to deter its nuclear capabilities?
This may be a tad bit controversial, but no, I would not do that. I personally do feel that every nation has a right to protect itself. We would hope that we're able to keep the peace. I think we've been able to do it for quite some time. And, I just don't feel, I don't think that is the proper thing to do to take away a nation's capability to defend itself.
Do you believe that NAFTA has done more to help or hurt the US economy?
I feel like it has done more to hurt, if I'm going to be honest. We need a lot of those jobs to be here in the country. We've seen what has happened when a lot of industries have gone overseas. It has had detrimental effects on our economy, I personally believe. And at this moment, I don't know how that damage is going to be repaired, but I do feel like it's something that definitely needs to be examined. And we need to figure out how we're going to get those jobs back home where they belong.
Should the country move closer to a single payer government managed healthcare system or further away from it to a more privatized system?
Because of the way the health insurance industry is set up, I honestly feel like there should be two options. I feel like there should be a single payer system in which more people will be able to have health insurance coverage at no cost or either a low cost. However, I don't think that individuals who want to have their private insurance carrier should have them taken away because I do have a background in health insurance. So I do see how some providers can get when it comes to I guess you could say government insurance. They're a little bit more hostile toward it. So, you'll see some doctors that simply just say, well, we're not going to take it, or they'll make it harder for you to get appointments or coverage. So, I honestly feel that it will do good to those individuals who cannot afford the extremely high premiums and things that are associated with private insurance. But I don't feel that private insurance altogether should be done away with. I feel like if a person can afford it and they would like to keep it, then they should be able to do so.
Should the U.S. torture suspected terrorists for information, regardless of if they are foreign or domestic?
I personally do not believe in torture. So I'm going to have to say no to that. I don't think that that should be a part of the process.
Okay. What is the best indication of economic health? The stock market, the unemployment rates, income, or something else?
You said what is the best indication of economic health?
Yes.
Um, I guess I would probably say the stock market. I think it gives us more of an idea of where we are as far as the nation goes and how our economy is doing. So I probably would go ahead and go with the stock market on that.
Okay. Should transgender troops be allowed to serve in the military?
Transgender troops. Um, I personally don't have an issue with that because I guess you could call me a humanitarian. So I don't feel as if people's human rights should be taken away from them. Uh, you know, um, do I feel that the military should pay for transgenders to get surgeries and things like that? No, I don't agree with that. I think that if they want to do that, that's something they should come out of pocket with. But as far as them not being part of the military, I do feel like that's a violation of their human rights.
Do you believe that women should be allowed to fight on the front lines in the military?
Ah, that's a tough one. Um, I have mixed feelings about it, and I'm gonna say why. I think that honestly, men are a show of force and strength for our nation. I don't think that women should be on the front lines of the military unless it's some type of situation where, the men just simply can't do it. But as far as being on the front lines, no, I don't think so.
Do you believe abortion is a human right for women?
As far as abortion goes, I'm kind of, again, I have mixed feelings about it because there's so many things that go into abortion. But I do think that abortion, how can I put this? I honestly just don't feel that abortion should be a first choice for anyone because we have to think about the little human being that is growing inside of you. I personally feel like their human rights, although, they're still developing in the womb, I feel like their human rights is some being taken away from them to live. So I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's a human right. But then again, I feel like also that at the end of the day, people are going to make a decision to do what's best for them. And I don't know if we should impede upon that right, but it's not something that I agree with, honestly.
Should there be a citizenship question on the US Census?
Citizenship. Yeah, I do feel there should be a citizenship question on the census, because to my understanding, if you're not a citizen, there are certain things that you should not be eligible for within the country. So if you're not a citizen and you're not letting, it be known whether or not you are a citizen, you may be getting resources that citizens should, and have access to by not identifying your status.
Should ICE be pulled from states with sanctuary cities?
No, I don't think so. Absolutely not.
Should the US government encourage energy e- energy efficient and green companies like Tesla with tax breaks?
Should they receive tax breaks?
Yes.
Um, I don't believe they should, honestly. No, I don't believe that. I just don't believe in major corporations not paying their fair share of taxes. Honestly, I don't think it's fair to the everyday citizen that has to pay taxes. Everyone should pay their fair share of taxes.
Do you approve of Biden halting the border wall project?
Um, no, I don't think that it should have been halted because what we have to think about is a lot of the things that we allow here in the United States, you won't see that taking place in other nations, where people can just freely walk on in without question. So I do think that the border wall construction should should have not been halted, but I also feel that as far as immigration goes, we do need to be a little bit more empathetic to situations. So I do feel like that's something that should be examined on a case by case basis, because there are situations that arise where people are looking for, asylum and things like that. So I don't think the wall should have been halted, because I do think that it will keep the immigration process a little bit more organized. So no, I don't believe that it should have been halted.
Should convicted felons who were nonviolent offenders be able to serve in Congress?
Yes, absolutely. I believe so. I believe that a lot of people who are in prison or jail or whatever the case may be, um, they're in there for victimless crimes. And I do feel like once they serve their time, there should be a process for them to be acclimated back into society, as long as they're not a threat to society.
Should felons who served their sentence be able to vote?
Yes, they absolutely should be.
Should voters in federal elections be required to show ID at the polls?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely feel that people should be identifying themselves, just as the process to voting. I don't see an issue at all with people having to identify themselves when they want to vote.
Should we reform the Electoral College or keep it as is?
Hmm. The Electoral College. That's a very good question. Um, I'm kind of on the fence about it, but I will answer it as best as I can. Um, yeah, I think that with a lot of the laws changing as far as voting goes, then maybe there may need to be some reform to the Electoral College, because we've seen it in past elections where, a candidate may have gotten more votes than another candidate. So I think that there should be some revisions to it. I think that maybe there should be a mandate there that they have to take a lot more consideration to the popular vote. So I revise, yes, I think there could be some revisions done to it.
Should Puerto Rico have voting members in Congress?
I don't see a problem with that if they're going to be considered as part of the states, or at least a territory. Then yes, they should have a voice, and be able to, you know, be part of the process.
How would you address the Me Too movement as a member of Congress?
The Me Too movement. The Me Too movement is a slippery slope. And people may get upset with me, but I feel like the Me Too movement, there needs to be some form of regulation there, simply because with anything, you don't want it to spiral out of control and have people to be in a situation where they are basically indicted in the court of public opinion. And honestly, I think that the Me Too movement does that. So I do, as a member of Congress, I would definitely recommend that there is more regulation as far as the Me Too movement goes, so that they won't feel like they have endless power, honestly.
What's your priority? Creating incentives for green technology innovation, or working to revive the coal industry, or an amalgamation of both?
I, when it comes to coal, a lot of people say that industry is dead, but I honestly feel as if we can get something worked out, that maybe there will be some type of way for them to coexist depending on where you are in the nation. I really think that it just depends on where you are and what the needs are of your state. I think that both could have some benefits. I just don't feel like it should be a all or nothing type thing. I think that it's a situation where they could both coexist.
What would you do to improve diversity on Capitol Hill?
Well, first and foremost, I would definitely encourage more of us to run. More people of various ethnic backgrounds, but Black people in particular, to not be afraid, to not feel like it's something that you can't do. To be very honest, I didn't have any plans to run this year. But when I found a party that I aligned with, I said, I already had plans to get very active in my community anyway and start, making waves there to uplift the community and fight for more resources for our community. So I would encourage more people to run and mobilize and get active so that we can see more diversity.
Do you believe that there should be a legislative means of improving workplace diversity?
Absolutely. Um, I personally feel that there should be. I think that our legislators should be serving the public. That's their job. So yes, I do think that they need to get more aggressive and a little bit more serious about making sure that there is legislation that can implement that. I do feel like that should be a priority to legislators.
Do you think it is better for the US to have an economy focused on the creation of goods or services?
Yes, absolutely. I feel that that is one of the things that can definitely drive an economy, and that is something that we've heavily lost over a point of time. Obviously, there are new innovations out there that we can take advantage of as well, um, but we cannot leave goods and services off the table, because I think that that is one of the major drivers of an economy.
Should legal immigration policy favor keeping families together, or should the way be cleared for the most educated individuals?
Um, I honestly feel as though families should definitely be kept together. I do not think that it's a good thing for families to be torn apart. So yes, I definitely feel that it should lean toward families being together.
And what are your thoughts on merit based immigration in general?
When you say merit-based immigration, could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Looking at the educational status and skills that an immigrant brings into the country. So perhaps favoring scientists, doctors, persons like that, skilled laborers, things like that.
I think that that's something that should be heavily considered. Yes, but I don't think that that is the only thing that drives a nation. Um, Obviously, we do want people here that can contribute to certain sectors of society, but I don't think that that should be the determining factor. I honestly feel, like I said, that there's other things that drive a nation. So I personally feel that anyone that wants to come here and do good and contribute to the nation in a way that will uplift it should be able to come, because I don't feel that just because someone is in a particular, I guess, academic position, that they're going to be good for the nation. There's a lot of people that are not educated that have a lot to offer to a nation. So I think that that is something that should be considered, but I don't think that that should be the determining factor.
Is capitalism a force for good?
Oh my God, capitalism has its pros and cons. I do think that as far as the aspect of it, you know, individuals being able to build businesses and get ahead by, I guess you could say, the sweat of their brow or whatever you want to call it. But I do think that there are some negative aspects to capitalism because, with capitalism, I do feel like there's always going to be an upper and a lower. Um, I would like to explore some ideas that would kind of bridge that gap a little bit, but not completely do away with it, if that makes any sense. I just feel as though we have to look at the pros and cons of it and see if it is something that is really benefiting the nation. And if not, maybe explore other options.
What word or which word resonates with you more? Globalist or nationalist?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I'm gonna probably go with globalists. And the reason that I say that is because, as far as our people go, I'm speaking for our people in particular right now. I do have a somewhat of a pan African ideology, and I would like to, on an international level, I would like to see our communities in particular. I would like to see us begin to bridge the gap and do something to build ourselves up on an international level.
Should public sector unions be allowed to require workers that are covered by their contracts to pay dues?
Hmm. No, I don't necessarily think so.
So, this is something that is really going to touch home for Floridians.
Hmm.
Should we allow new offshore drilling? And if so, should Florida keep its exemption while other states are unsure?
Hmm. As far as offshore drilling goes, I'm not too versed on that. But what I will say is this: is that I am a proponent, as of right now, especially of keeping a lot of things within the country that will, build up our economy and will support jobs right here in the nation. As far as Florida goes, I think that if all other states have to pay, Florida should have to pay as well.
Okay, let's take a break from the questions because I got a really good question from Jessica J, who said, I don't see an option to sign the petition, or should I click endorse? So here is the thing. I think she's talking about your website.
Okay.
Your signatures to get that 1,500 approximate signatures that she needs have to be in person, and those signatures have to be in the particular, and that's why I put her flyer up. Can you go over the particular counties that um, are applicable?
Yes. So this is Broward County, but the thing is, as far as the petition goes, they're not electronic. So if someone is trying to sign a petition online, they wouldn't be able to do so. The only thing that you can do online is volunteer if you want to help out with the campaign, or you can endorse, or you can donate, or do all three. But as far as the petition goes, because of the way things are set up right now, that's something that has to take place in person, and I have to witness the individual signing the petition.
Yes, and this is why we want to come at this from two angles. So we do want as many signatures as possible, right? But also, the secondary way is to pay that $7,000 that's required to get onto the ballot. So if you like what you're hearing here, I run very conservative. So a lot of what she says resonates with me, but then, I'm conservative. So there are some things that don't vibe with me as much. But if overarchingly you are in, you're going to fall under her campaign as running for Florida's 20th congressional district chair, then if you're liking what you're hearing, this is going to be your opportunity to get a candidate on the ballot that's going to be working for you. And there's also another unique reason to get her on the ballot, but we're going to get to the party once I get through my last few questions. We're almost toward the end of these rapid fire questions. And I have to say, and I think you guys will admit, she has not really missed a beat with answering these questions. So she will stand up quite well in a debate with other candidates. And that makes me happy to hear. And I hope you guys are very satisfied with the answers you've been getting from her and how quickly she's able to sort out her thoughts on all of these various issues that will definitely come up if she takes the chair. So, my next question is, do you think climate change is real and man made? And if so, is there anything the country can or should do to try to stop it?
To be honest, I do think that it's a little bit of both. If I'm going to be completely honest about that, I do think that there are certain things that are taking place, within the atmosphere that is causing a level of climate change. But I do say that I don't know if I want to say we like that, but I do think that over time, just because of the way the planet has been managed, that some of it, a lot of it has been caused by us. And that I believe that there are some natural occurrences that contribute to climate change as well. Um, what I feel like we need to do to try and stop it is we do need to seek alternatives for more clean energy. That is something that I do agree with. But I do think that two things can take place at the same time. It's all about how we're going to do things moving forward and what is the best options for us to keep the planet clean. So that's something that we're definitely going to have to explore. What is causing climate change? And what are some of the methods that we are going to use as far as energy and things like that to repair some of the damage that we have caused to the planet?
Somebody in the chat is asking, do donors have to be local to Florida? No, I don't believe so. You guys don't have any donor restriction laws, do you?
No, we don't
Was that
have
right? Yes.
owner restriction laws. They don't have to be in our state, but they do have to be within the United States
Mhm.
because they're not allowing us to take any international donations.
Okay. So if if you aren't if you don't fall under her district, but you want to support getting her on the ballot for this special election, then you can still donate on her website, electshelly.com. And that is for anybody that's in the United States. Okay. No overseas donors, unfortunately, just those individuals in the United States. Let's move on to the next question. Would you vote for spending bills that add to the deficit?
Um, I am not completely for spending bills that are going to add to the deficit. I think that we need to start figuring out ways that we are going to solve that issue. I'm not naive to the fact that there are segments of our country that do need the help, but I feel like we need to examine what we're spending money on and how we can pull back from some of the things that we're spending on that we don't necessarily need to be spending on. So I think that moving things around and examining, what we don't necessarily need, that's not an emergent issue, is where we can start to take funds and divert them to other things that are necessary. But continuing to just add and add and add, I think that I strongly feel that that's going to have detrimental effects in the future.
Do you think tax reform will create enough economic activity to offset its costs?
I think it will come strikingly close. I don't know if it will completely offset it. I do feel like some of the wealthiest people in the nation do need to start paying more taxes. Um, you know, it's only the right thing to do. It's the fair thing to do. If you have your everyday kind of run of the mill type person having to pay a large portion of their income in taxes, or let's just say a small business owner has to pay a significant amount of taxes, then the people, the multi-billion-dollar corporations and other organizations in this country, they need to pay their fair share as well, because it's just the fair and right thing to do, honestly.
Would you cut social services for older Americans if it meant lower taxes, or would you pay higher taxes for more services?
I would not cut those services. The type of person that I am, honestly, I would pay higher taxes. I think that our elderly members of our society, they have contributed to society for a very long time, and I think that we should have a level of consideration for them, as to where maybe if we can just pay a little bit more in order for them to have their services, then I think that that's something that we all should consider doing.
Would you vote to overturn a presidential veto to keep the government running?
Hmm. I guess I would have to say yes to that. I would have to say yes to that. I
Okay.
feel like we would definitely stand to benefit from that. Hopefully, if it doesn't get too out of hand, but I would definitely say yes.
So, before I get to the question that's going to bring us into speaking a little bit more about the political party that you're running under, I want to ask, do you already have a plan for where you're going to be? Because you're going out and like boots on the ground with your petitions, right?
Yes.
So, do you have any upcoming dates and locations that you can share for people in the Florida area of where they can come so that they can sign the petition?
I have a question for you. Do you mind if my campaign manager just comes in for a moment?
No, that's
Okay,
fine.
great. He'll be able to let you all know where we're gonna be next.
Okay.
Hi, Irene. Thank you so much for having us. We will be Thursday afternoon at Broomfield's Grocery. Now, Broomfield's Grocery is located right across the street from Scurry's Funeral Home in Fort Lauderdale. If you're familiar with Fort Lauderdale at all, Scurry's Funeral Home is right off of Sunrise and 95. Um, Ask anybody, get off of Sunrise at 95 and ask for Scurry's Funeral Home. You will find it. If you find Once you find Scurry's Funeral Home, we will be right across the street, and that's this coming Thursday. Also, if anyone that is not in the district would like to meet Shelly up close and be able to meet to ask questions, we can supply you with a link, Irene, that if you could possibly put in this video for us. Every Wednesday night, she does a virtual meet and greet over Zoom at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's every Wednesday night, and I can supply you with that link as soon as possible, Irene.
Okay, that's fine. Shelly, are you able to drop it in the chat, or if you can't, you can give it to me and I'll make sure that it's attached to the video. And also, if you can get those dates to me on, I don't know, something like a flyer, I can post them on the community wall, just so that, as people are watching on the playback, and I can also post the information in the comment section, those that are in the area can show up for that.
Yes, absolutely. We will get all of that information over to you very, very shortly.
Okay, awesome. And yes, I'm done said I have a friend in Fort Lauderdale. I have to let him know about her. Definitely, if you know people in the area that she's going, or even just in the greater Florida area in general, because it can't hurt to get the word out, right?
Right.
Definitely let them know about her. Like I said, the locations, the in-person locations to sign the petition, I'm going to post those to the community wall. And also know that you can also donate. So we do want to try to kill two birds with one stone. If you donate and she has to pay to get on the ballot, then great. She can pay to get on the ballot. If we can't quite get the in-person, because it takes an in-person signature, right? And that's a lot of work,
Right.
um, to get people to show up at the right location to sign the petition as she watches them sign it. And that's how stringent the rules are. So, um, if she manages to get the signatures that she needs, those in person signatures, those monies can then go toward her campaign. Either way, I encourage, no matter where you are in the country, to donate to her campaign. And if possible, if you're in the Florida area, we want to try to get those signatures. It's ideal if we don't have to hand, the government $7,000 just to get her on the ballot. You know that these processes are set up to be difficult, for those people who are not wealthy, and that means that oftentimes we don't get the best candidates on the ballot. So, let's pull together and try to make this happen. Now, my next and final question from the rapid fire is going to bring us into a discussion about the political party that she is running with. And so, my question is, why do you want to be in Congress? And what is your blueprint for gaining sovereign lands for Black people in the United States? Also, are all Black people included in your plan, or is it ADOS specific?
Okay, so first and foremost, the reason that I decided to run is because, excuse me, when I learned about the political party, the Mahali Party, a lot of their ideology aligned with mine. So that was my motivation behind running because they are a party that is very pro independent and about getting things done for the Black community. So I said, I like I said, I didn't have a political party that I was affiliated with, but when I seen a lot of things that they want to do for the community, like safe cities, um, doing everything that they can to eradicate poverty within Black communities across the nation, and then ultimately getting those sovereign states. So, that was something that I definitely align with. And that was the main drive behind me running for office because I said, okay, I feel like once the Mahali Party is able to get their candidates in progress in Congress, then we can start making waves for a Black agenda in this country, which is something that is very much needed. Um, excuse me. I wish JL was here with me. He's the co-chair of the party.
Yeah,
Be-
do you want to give him the link so he can come in and we can have the discussion?
sure.
Yeah, because it's about that time now. And while you do that, and some people are asking, they still want to see you. They're saying, "Where's her
Oh
camera?
my
Why can't we see her?"
God.
So I'll say this: while she is getting the co-chair for the party on, I want to talk a little bit about the party. So the land that they are looking to acquire, and I want to say this is not a far-fetched idea. In fact, this has worked in several countries. There are several South American countries where the native populations were really being kind of cast aside and being regulated heavily by the government. And what they did is they started to get into the political process and were able to essentially gain sovereignty so that um, they could govern their own people, they could have their protected lands. And so this is something we've seen work over and over again. In fact, we know that it's also worked in this country. And we know that it's worked with Black people in this country. Myself being part of the Gullah Geechee Nation,
Mm-hmm.
you have um, a level of anonymity without the legal sovereignty, though I do have to say that. So this is not unheard of. This has been done many, many times. And I know that her party is looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, land in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Is that correct?
Yes.
um, to have essentially what will operate very similarly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to how the Native Americans operate, where those lands become governed by the people on that land um, as separate, right, with representatives that um, do collaborate with the United States government when that's necessary, just like the Native American nations do. And I have seen this happen before, and in recent history, and several times in the Americas. So this is a very real thing that can occur, but it does, as she was saying, mean getting people into office who have that mind so
Mhm.
that they can push for those social policy changes. Um, Now, with that said, uh, go ahead and give us some background on the party, why you chose to run with them, and, those sorts of things. Let's get into it as we wait for the co chair to join us.
Okay, so yes, the Mahali Party is a fairly new political party. I believe they were established in 2020 as a matter of necessity. There's a lot of things that are going on in the nation that does affect our people. One of what the biggest issues that we do face is how we are treated by law enforcement, and that was one of the main driving forces behind wanting to section off land in this country where we would be in control of the government, the police department, being the governors, mayors, and everything of those cities. A lot of that was inspired by providing a protection mechanism for our people. So that is one of the main goals of the party, to be able to establish positions of government within those three states to ultimately get to a point where we have enough political power among our people to begin to make things move in the right direction, be able to have the proper people in Congress to, get the votes and everything that is needed to succeed and become a nation of our own. Another, big driving force in the party is self-preservation. And you asked me a question about abortions earlier. And although I did say that I feel that abortion, someone's right to get an abortion is a personal choice, but I do not advocate for abortion. And the reason why I do not advocate for abortion is because our community has some of the highest numbers of abortions. And what that does is that takes away from our numbers. Right now, I believe, due to abortion, we have lost about 50 million of our own. So that takes away from us having more numbers in this nation to amass more political power to be able to get things done. So that is another view of the party is, you know, being able to preserve ourselves. Self-preservation is a big force within the party. We need to preserve ourselves and we need to keep our numbers up. Yes, we do need to have our babies so we can continue to add to our population. That's another view of the party that I strongly agree with. And I also agree with the fact that if we're living among each other within our own governmental system, we're going to be able to eradicate a lot of the issues that we have as far as poverty goes, because we'll be spending a lot of the money among our own people. So those are three of the things with the party that definitely resonates with me. And I see that we have JL here. So I guess I'll hand it over to him to answer some more questions about the party.
Hi, how are you, JL?
Great, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, can you tell us a little bit about the blueprint that your party has for gaining these sovereign lands in the United States for Black people? And also, um, Shelly, I'm not sure if you touched on it or not. Is this inclusive of all Black people or is it ADOS specific?
Yeah, just black folks, all the black people. So, numbers average between 40 and 50 million at this point in this country. That's what the population says, somewhere in that neighborhood. So all of us that want it, So what we've done, we did something that has never been done before. We actually did conduct a national poll to find out how many of that population really would support anything like this. And the number came back to be 35%. And that's why we came up with those 3 states, because we're looking at population and also the timeliness of how long it would take us to achieve that goal. We do want to become an independent nation. So Mahali Party is a party that was founded January 2020, January 16th, 2020. So we're a little bit, a year and a half old as a party. Our goal for 2022, even though it's 2021, we are involved in a 22 election, special election in Florida, District 20. And that's really designed for us to propel ourselves to get what we want to attain in terms of this, we call it sovereign land, through the political process. And I heard you mention how other people have done something quite similar. And pro-independence is now a thing, not just here in America, but it's in different countries throughout the world. Like Scotland and as a nation is in the process of doing that. There's a region of Spain called Catalonia. They're involved. So is Bermuda and other Black nations just as well. And after we've researched that, we decided to bring that concept to the United States in terms of pro-independence. That term's a new term that people are using for independence. So that's what we stand for as a political party. It's a party that's been established by Black people. The focus is getting the Black agenda, into government, and of course, it's for our people. It's led by people, and the design is to help our people gain greatness among ourselves. The good thing about this political party is the fact that it's not connected to any political party in this country at all. It's separate, just like the Democrats are separate from the Republicans and vice versa. So are we. And that's really where our strength exists, because after analyzing why we get nothing accomplished in Congress in terms of Black people, it's because our people, Black people, happen to be in the wrong political party. That's the only answer. When, they're basically, they vote just like, Pelosi votes, everyone votes. Each vote is a single vote. They all count equally, but yet we get nothing in return. We got 55 members in Congress. We can't get anything out of those 55 members because the party that they're a member of uses all their resources for themselves. And so they just use those 55 members as guaranteed free votes. That's what it amounts to. So the only way that you're able to attain what you want in Washington is to do exactly what takes place in Washington. That is that the caucus of the Republicans and the caucus of the Democrats are in continued battle with each other to attain what they choose, what's important to them. And the difference between Black people is that we're not in the game. We're just participants. We're like spectators. And by developing our own caucus, our own delegation of elected official, like Ms. Fain, then that allows us to go to Washington, no different than they are, and fight what we want. And you do that through the process of voting, since it is a political process. 218 votes is required in Washington to pass a bill into law. And right now, the Democrats have that. That's their exact number. So they have a very tight majority, very slim, 219. And our goal is to create a deficit, take their votes away, get our people to replace some of their members. By creating the deficit, we create a want. Now they have to come out of their own party to get a bill passed. They have to come knocking at our doors. And that allows us to build the power of leverage to get what we want. Does that explain it to you?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And I think it's a tried and true method.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead, man.
So we do have some questions that people have in the chat, so let me ask them. So there were some questions surrounding your educational policy. Can you speak on that? Like, where do you stand on educational policy? Oh, you're muted, Shelly.
Okay, am I back?
Yes, and just for the chat, if you have either questions for Shelly or for JL regarding the party, Shelly's campaign, or for JL regarding the party, go ahead and include your questions in the chat and we can take a few questions from you guys. But yes, somebody was asking about where do you stand on educational policy?
As far as educational policies go in this country, I honestly feel like there needs to be a total revamp of the educational system. I do not feel like it's reflective of everyone involved. I do feel like accurate history does need to be taught within the educational system. I also feel as if the educational system does not really go far enough to, you know, provide what children need to operate in the real world. That's one of the major concerns that a lot of people had. That when some people leave high school, there's a lot of things that they will need to function that they do not have. In some cases, students are just being passed through the educational system. I believe there was a school out in Baltimore somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, where the highest GPA in the school was less than a 2.0. So I honestly do feel like the educational system in the country does need a total revamp. It needs to be more reflective of the real world. And, I support any initiative that goes along with bringing some changes that are more realistic for society and to the educational system.
With that said, where do you stand on school choice? Do you support educational vouchers that students can take to any institution that they want to attend, be it public or private?
I think that school choice, it can be good in some instances, but I would advocate for the schools that are in the community to get resources so that students don't have to leave their community to have access to a quality education. I would prefer that over, students having to leave their community just to be able to get access to a better education. All of that stuff should be happening within their community.
Okay, and then we have a question in the chat that is directed at both of you. And that is, where do you stand on reparations for ADOS American Blacks and the general Black agenda? That's a question to both of you. And piggybacking on that question, are your general thoughts about the ADOS movement?
Okay, I guess I'll take that one first. As far as ADOS and reparations go, um, I feel like it's long overdue. I think that is completely egregious that just the mere thought of reparations angers some people in this country when it is a debt that is owed, and not just for slavery, for years of discrimination and tactics that have economically locked our community out of access to resources. So it's something that is definitely due to ADOS people in the country. Now, as far as ADOS within itself, I do understand why there is a need for, I guess you would call it an ADOS movement, because sometimes we do encounter unfavorable attitudes from our brothers and sisters from across, the diaspora. But I will have to say that I don't think that that is very conducive to what it is that we're trying to do as a people. If we can come together as Black people in this nation, as I said before, there is power in numbers. So keeping our numbers up, because we are all Black people, and I do feel like we have common interests. I just feel like it's kind of counterproductive for us to isolate ourselves from other Black people in the country. I think that it will stand to benefit us if we all can just set our differences aside and come together to get our numbers up so we can have the proper the amount of political pull that is needed to make real changes in the country.
JL, what's your response to that question?
The reparations question?
Yes, reparations
Okay.
and in general, the ADOS movement.
Yeah. So we absolutely believe in reparations, but our method may be different. Ours is through the political process, meaning that there's no need to have studies or anything. That's all just it's a stall tactics that politicians use. But as a delegation, we build a delegation in Washington. Oh, that's all we really need, because just like the Democrats and Republicans issue bills or either support bills, you have the same power that they would have. And through that tool, or that vehicle rather, you're able to attain your reparations. It doesn't even have to have the name reparation attached to it. You still get the benefits of it. There's many different ways that those monies can be diverted back to our communities. If you had a delegation of the Mahali Party in Washington starting in 2022, you'll see immediate differences. The difference will start like in that first term of government. You'll find how funds will start funneled back to our community, and it doesn't require asking. You don't have to beg. You don't have to protest. You don't have to march. We have elected officials that have the same voting rights as Pelosi and McConnell in Congress, and they can get what they want by you voting for them. You get them elected. You have our own delegation. We can write. They can write bills just like Pelosi can write bills, and anyone in Congress can write a bill. And they just have to have support to leverage their votes to get what they want. And there's always going to be, remember, no matter what of those two caucuses, there's always going to be a super sweet thing that they want to get accomplished. If you recall, during the first stimulus check that we had in the U.S., that was actually first proposed, the stimulus check, what came from President Trump and the Republican Party. They were promoting that, and they finally put together the first concept of that bill. And then it went to the House, and Pelosi, she just threaded it up, and it got the Republicans all upset about it. And she added another trillion to what was already on that. And finally, they went back and forth. The battle went between the two parties, and Trump said, "Hey, look, I already promised people to do this, and I hate what Pelosi did. She added, money for libraries and stuff like that. So they had no concern that had to do with the virus, but nonetheless, he signed the bills because he really, really wanted to get that bill signed because the people needed the money, and that's what he did. So my point to you is that there's always going to be something that's super sweet to them, super important to them, and that's when you get them and you can negotiate what you want.
So this might be a question for you, JL. Some people are curious why you specifically singled out Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama for those sovereign lands versus other slaveholding states.
Well, that's a very good question. Here's the thing. So when we came up with the idea of forming our own nation, there were many questions that came up. One of the critical questions was, can we do this? And the answer was yes. I mean, there's many ways of doing it. And then one of the biggest questions next to that one was, how long would it take us? And we all agree we wanted to see it in our lifetime, right? So this is all based on population, and those are very low populated states. Because of that, they have a pretty good high percentage of Black people. Like Mississippi is like 42% Black, the highest percentage of any state in the country in terms of percentages. Then you go down to Louisiana, 35, 28% in Alabama. So these are one of the highest Black populated states already. And by adding to those numbers, we'll get to a plural majority population-wise, meaning that every election that takes place, we're going to win them. So we're going to flip the state, which are red today, we're going to flip them to our color, gold. They'll be gold states. And that's why that population, those states were designated. In addition to the fact that we figured out how many people of our people we even support the idea, get involved in this process, based on 35% is the population that we think that we can occupy quickly, and we have a timeline, and that's something that we put because we didn't want to stay in this perpetual running after something. So right now we have a timeline to achieve this goal of becoming a nation within 8 years.
Okay,
That's our promise.
Thank you. Okay, and this question was directed at Shelly. Shelly, did you have any thoughts to how to increase Black female employment rates and business ownership?
Yes, I absolutely do. I definitely feel like there needs to be more money allocated within, because one of the things that I want to do in my district is I want to give a lot of pushback into the developers that are getting grants and funds to come and build in our community. I want to be able to be in a position where the district that I serve, which happens to be 54% Black, is getting those resources as opposed to other individuals that do not have, they don't have any interest in building up our community. So definitely, I want to implement more grants for Black women and Black people in general, but definitely Black women in particular, because we don't get paid as much as others in the workforce. So that's something that definitely needs to be corrected. There's no reason whatsoever why we are not getting paid to do the same jobs as our counterparts. So I definitely have plans to work on that and make sure that is something that is going to be overturned, because it's basically the right thing to do, and it's something that is long past due to get the proper attention that it needs.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is. I feel like this is a straw man question because I I, I hesitate to pose a question about critical race theory because critical race theory is not actually taught in school. It's an academic concept that's discussed amongst academics. But the question was asked, what are your thoughts on critical race theory?
If I'm going to be extremely honest, I don't have a whole lot of knowledge of what it is they're looking to implement with critical race theory. And please do forgive me because I know it's a hot button issue. However, from what I do know, I honestly don't see why it's so controversial for people to be taught the truth and to discuss the truth about the fundamentally racist practices of this country. I do understand why certain individuals don't want that stuff to come to light, but I don't see anything wrong with people being exposed to the truth about this inherently racist country and things that are going on that are unfair to other individuals in this country. I honestly feel like the truth must be supported. And if people are uncomfortable with that, that's something that they're going to have to deal with internally, because we've spent a lot of time learning things that, it's just not the complete truth. And it's time for us to be exposed to what is really going on. So I don't feel that there's an issue for it to be taught in the school system. I do feel like once we begin these discussions, then we're making progress. So that's how I feel about it. I'm not opposed to the truth being out there for people to know.
Okay, and I'm going to direct this question at both of you since you both spoke to the reparations conversation. This is a question I have not heard asked before, and I am going to chime in on this, even though I am not running for office. But it is, should Blacks who held slaves, should their descendants also get reparations? And I would say it's, this is to me like in the abortion argument talking about the incest, the child, the woman that's pregnant because of incest. It's like that is almost none of the abortions. So why are you throwing that out there for conversation? um, that is almost such a small percentage of those that held slaves that it doesn't make sense. And also reparations is not built on individual um, actions toward Black people. It's built on the collective actions of the United States and the wealth that was gained off of that free labor. So to me, it's somewhat of an asinine question. However, I'm going to go ahead and pose it to Shelly and JL. What are your thoughts? Should descendants of Black people who may have a relative in the past that was a slave owner also qualify for reparations?
Should they qualify for reparations
Yes.
if had a descendant that was a slave holder?
Yes, if they are descendants of Black people who, and this is interesting too, because it's kind of a silly question as well, because many Black people who are ADOS have a white admixture and may very well have slave owner blood in them. So we're going to still give them reparations, right? I don't see how that would work different if the slaveholder was Black, but it is an interesting question. Does it matter? I guess is a more fair question. If they're in their lineage, in a Black person's lineage, one of their relatives held slaves, would they still qualify in your eyes for reparations?
As far as how I feel about it, I would say yes. And the reason that I would say yes is because I'm the individual that believes that reparations is due for more than just slavery. I feel like as Black people in this country, there's other things that have occurred that warrants reparations. So I still think that even if that was the case, if you are a Black person in this nation, you have faced some form of discrimination as far as being locked out of resources goes. And I personally feel that reparations is also due for things like that. I think it's due for mass incarceration, tearing families apart, not families not being able to build wealth. So I would definitely say yes because, as I said before, I just feel like it's due for more than just slavery. So I would be a proponent of them receiving reparations as well.
JL, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, uh, and I'm glad that person brought that question up or brought it up because it's an important question. Because this question does, it brings light to the fact that these political operatives, whether they're politicians or not, are really using a diversion tactic. This is not even a question that's a legitimate question. It's just like what's HR 40 bill that's being passed in Washington by Black people today. It's a bill not to get reparations, but they're promoting it as if it is. In reality, it's just a bill to give Congress the right to conduct a study about reparations, which is this is just an insult on our intellect as a people, and it's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. You know, yes, we know Black people were slaves. The whole world knows that Black people in this country were slaves for 200 something years. So the fact that these questions are being brought up are just designed to create a diversion and designed to as a stall tactic because they don't want to pay. That's it. That's the only reason these questions come up. And that, it didn't come up in Nazi Germany when the Jews were killed. It didn't come up when the Japanese encampment took place in America. So why are we discussing this today? Because it's Black people. This is the level.
Oh, we lost him,
Yeah, we did. Um,
which is too bad because I would have loved to hear his thoughts on what Maya posed, which is if it goes beyond Jim Crow and slavery, then should Black immigrants in the US receive reparations too?
that's a very good question.
Yeah, it's kind of opening Pandora's box.
Yeah.
But my question is, can one thing be true without the other being true?
Um, I guess it depends on the situation, to be very honest with you. I don't know if it would depend on how much an individual would get in reparations, depending on the situation. But like you said, if we're going to talk about that aspect of it, then I feel that yes, there should be some reparations for individuals that were here, because there were policies that took place that locked them out of wealth. Um, you know, things like not being able to purchase a home, or turning their communities into ghettos, and driving down the property values, and just all sorts of things like redlining. There were immigrants in the country that suffered as a result of that. So if they have a case for why they should receive reparations, I don't see why they shouldn't.
JL, did you hear that question? Did you have anything you wanted to add to it?
I'm not sure you can hear. JL,
No,
can you hear us?
you're still muted.
Okay. All right. Is that
Mm-hmm.
better? Okay.
Did you hear the question that was posed?
No.
So it said if the basis for reparations goes beyond slavery and Jim Crow, then should Black immigrants who faced racism in the United States under those social policies also receive reparations?
Yeah. Well, reparation is based on actual slavery. And this is no different than any other country has done. It's it's a very basic process, but this country is just trying not to pay for this, and they're going to come up with all type of excuses to not to pay it. So they'll add as many monkey wrenches as they can to delay it, and we're going like a hamster in a wheel, not getting anywhere. It's quite frank. It's a very basic thing. It didn't take long to pay Japan for the encampment that the Japanese Americans that were encamped here. There was that discussion never came up. Didn't come up with the Germans when the Jews would receive reparations. So why are we having this discussion today? And it's because they think we're less than, right? 3/5 of one. And because of that, they treat us like that and create conversations as if we have the intellect of 3/5 of a person. We're not idiots. So we just bring that on to Washington. That's why the only solutions for reparations is in 2022 when the Mahali Party get that delegation in Washington with Ms. Fain and her team, and they're going to create that resolution there. They're not going to talk to them like they're children. They're going to talk to them like they're an actual member of Congress, and they're going to deal with them in that same fashion. These things it's belittling to our intellect as Black people. So the fact that this conversation has gone to this level is to show us how much we're buying into what this Democratic Party has been promoting. They've been
Mm,
promoting this for a long time. And almost everything that this Democratic Party has taught our people has been so wrong for us. Just like abortion, for example. And by the way, that's one of our major. I know we got into reparations, but it does connect to that because you know our people are about 50 million today in this country, and the CDC shows us that in the past 40 years, that's the exact number of babies that we as a people aborted. We should be 100 million, but we're just half the numbers because of the teachings and the directions of this Democratic Party that has been absolute poison to our people. And, again, the same ideology or treatment towards our people is being used in Washington by those same political operatives, those politicians, and the concept of reparations. Of course, they know we need reparation. And of course, they know they should pay us reparations, but they don't want to pay it. That's the bottom line. And we're going to hold them to that in 2022. They're going to have to come to that because we're not going to treat them or behave like, there's something wrong with us mentally. There's nothing wrong with us. We know what's wrong. The world knows what's wrong, and we're going to get it done.
I
so
want
this,
to add
go
something
ahead.
to that really quickly if I can.
Hmm.
If my memory serves me correctly, I read an article about something that happened. I believe this was under the Obama administration, where they signed off on the Jewish community getting more reparations. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading an article on that where they did that. So my thing is that these people have money to just give out for situations that didn't even occur in the United States. So, it kind of ties back into the question of the immigrants who have been wronged by the United States government and have been discriminated against, for a number of reasons. I do feel like immigrants who were affected by Jim Crow should receive something for those policies that did discriminate against them and could have caused them great harm in the form of being able to build wealth. If they can do it for individuals that are not even from this country, I don't see why, immigrants that were directly affected by racist practices in this country should not be entitled to something.
Okay, and I want to close with this final question before you guys kind of give your closing thoughts. And I thought this was an interesting question. Actually, I think this is a good question. And it is, how important is it for your party to avoid the people of color moniker? And do you think it dilutes the Black position?
I guess I'll go first. I do get caught up in the habit of saying people of color sometimes, and that's something that I want to get out of my vocabulary completely because I feel like people of color is a trick bag. We see what happens when we buy into the people of color thing. Black people are put last when we put everyone in the same pool and talk about people of color because anybody can be identified as a POC. um, I believe everyone who's not white. But we do see how things are handled in this country when it comes to Black people specifically. So we have to get into the mindset of talking Black and talking about what is going to be done directly for the Black community. Because once we get into the people of color thing, we see how scarce the resources become for us. So I'm not one to kind of buy into the whole people of color because I see what happens to us when we do that.
And JL, what are your thoughts on the people of color moniker, especially considering the political party?
Yeah, well, we're a pro-independence party, so uh, there's been many terms that have been used to describe who we are by other people, um, and none of them have been good. Okay, so um, we say that you know we don't really have to answer to what they call us, but to what we want to respond to is what we're going to answer to, not what they determine. So as far as the terms, yeah, I get some of the ideas behind them, but ultimately, we all know Black among ourselves, we know what we're talking about, and that's what really matters. Not what they concoct or tell us what we should do or think about. And that when we say pro-independence, that we mean absolutely that we should address things the way that we see fit. If my friend wants to say Black, or the other one, I've heard the term more and all kinds of different terms that we can use to identify ourselves. As long as we all, as a people, understand that what we're referring to, that's what's important, not what other people say about us. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why we want to have our own country. And I did want to answer a question that came up as far as the sovereignty of states. And it's not going to be anything like the Indian territories that exist in the United States. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be an independent nation, just like uh, America, what we call the North America continent, is composed of three countries: Canada, America, the U.S., and also Mexico. And it's just one single piece of land that is divided by borders, political borders, among those three countries. And that's exactly what we attain or going to attain by forming our own country with those three states. They'll be no different than Mexico and Canada in comparison to the U.S. Instead of 3 separate countries, it'll be 4. So that's how we feel about them. They can say what they want. We'll identify ourselves as we choose.
That's powerful, actually. Um, I guess that's definitely a more powerful stance to take is it's not the definitions that they tie to the words because we always think of it as we're beholden to how they define things. It's what we choose to attach to those words and what we think should take precedent over what they are saying. That's actually a much more, I think that's a much more healing way to get people to stop debating over the words than our current method, which is focused on how outsiders view the verbiage that we're using. You could have really been helpful in our conversation about are we Black? With that said, um, please, you guys, I just want to remind you guys that Shelly is going to need about 1,500 more signatures to get onto the ballot, or she's going to have to pay her way onto the ballot, which is $7,000. If you have donations, you can go to electshelly.com and directly donate to her campaign. In addition to that, and Katora, although I appreciate you, girl. And also Katora, not Katora, Katora, now I'm thinking of you because I'm looking at your name. And also, I will be attaching in the comment section of this video and to the community tab the next location that you can meet Shelly at to sign, right, in person so that we can pull those 1,500 signatures. If you are not in her district, you can still donate. If you are not in her district and you know people who are, you can share this interview as well as her platform. She also has open forum, I believe, every Wednesday, where it's like a virtual meet and greet. All of that information will be attached to the comment section and in the description box. So make sure that you guys take advantage of that as well. Um, and with that said, I would love to get some just closing thoughts from the both of you before we conclude.
Okay, I do want to say something really quickly because my name is not spelled the short way. It is Shelley. So that's elect Shelly, SHELLEY.com. If you spell it the other way, it's going to take you to some woman's site. And the site is not even active anymore. So I do want to make that distinction. My name is spelled the long way. So that's elect Shelly, SHELLEY.com. First and foremost, Irene, I appreciate you so much. I think you're a phenomenal person. So thank you very much for having me on tonight. I want to say this. I chose a Black agenda because, like I said, I see what is happening to us in this country, and I strongly feel that we are at a point now that we have to continue to push and strive for what it is that we need and deserve. I am in full support of pro-independence. I'm also in support, right now in the short term of making sure that our communities are not forgotten about, are not left out of the conversation, and are not forgotten and left behind. The country is moving forward, and there's absolutely no reason why Black people should not be moving forward as well. I want to do tremendous things for our people, but it is going to take the support of the community. So I do ask everyone to please stand with me so that we can move forward and get the things that we ultimately deserve, which I feel is to be a self-determined people where we don't even have to worry about what others think of us or what they feel we should have. We will be self-determined and we'll be making decisions for ourselves moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank
JL?
you.
Yeah. And well, thank you for inviting me here to this meeting. This is a great opportunity to meet with you. Um, I'm glad we have Black conservatives. wow, this is great. And the fact that uh, you're all invited to Mahali Party. So you guys can check out our website, mahaliparty.org. And you already met our candidate for District 20 in Florida for the special election. Great candidate. Then we have a great candidate. What did you say? Ms. Fain?
I would say so.
Yeah. So do we. And I think she's going to do great service to her district. So I strongly recommend everyone in District 20 to take a closer look at what she has. And our party is not bad either. It's the only party that has a Black agenda that no one else has, in this country. And it's time that we get this accomplished. We really need to have this done because we have many needs and they have been neglected for decades, if not centuries. And now we have to put ourselves to work. So you elect her, she's going to be working hard in Washington because her job is monumental. She's got to catch up for the Black Caucus, but they've been doing it for 50 years, neglecting our people. And they're going to try to catch up on that. And, let's get a new delegation, a team to help her get things done for you in Washington. So our goal is to run 29 candidates in 2022 for Congress. So we're serious about replacing a lot of these elected officials so that we can have our delegation out there. But right now, the main important issue that we are focusing on in really it's a 2022 election, which is I think November 11th is your election day, is that Ms. Fain? November 11th? Yeah. November 11th, 2022. I'm sorry, not November.
January.
January.
Yeah,
January.
November. So
Are you sure? Are you speaking of the
it's
special?
November 2nd. It's
Oh,
November 2nd, 2021 for the primary. And the special election will be January 11th, 2022.
Jen, thank you. Thanks for clearing that up for me. Yeah, all these elections. Jeez, that's a lot of elections going on. So she'll have two elections, one in January and one in November. Okay.
We want
uh,
to remember the January one first because that's the special election.
that's right.
January 11th,
That's the main
2022.
one.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the one that I'm going to win.
Yes. Please support Shelly Fain. Thank you.
And so I just want to remind everybody why we're here. Shelly is the 2022 is a 2022 20th Congressional District um, candidate for the special election that has come up because of the passing of Alcee Hastings in April of this year. The special election is to be held on January 11th, 2022. So we definitely want to show up for that. The primary elections are on November 2nd, 2021. We are on a crunch here, right? We want to make sure that those of you that can show up in person to the locations that we mentioned earlier, and that will be, and maybe you can mention them one more time before we go, Shelly, and that will be attached to this video and in the community tab. If you can show up in person and sign, that's great. If you are not in Florida or you cannot show up in person to sign, please donate on her website. The website address is pinned to the comment section of this video or to the chat of this video. And it will also be in the description box because we can still financially support her so that she can either pay because they're making it difficult. They want in-person signatures, right? Or they want $7,000 to get on the ballot, one or the other. But let's try to get her those signatures so that the donations can go toward her campaign, because you know that it's always money that makes the biggest splash in campaigns because they have the ability to get in front of the most faces. So in order to be able to put Black candidates that are not on somebody else's agenda onto ballots and get them into office, we have to, as a community, make collaborative efforts to support them and get behind them when they come forward. And so I'm hoping that that is something that we can do here and that we can repeat with other special party candidates that are diverging from the typical blue and red Republican and Democratic political arms. And with that said, Shelly, can you give us the location of um, the next opportunity people will have to sign the petition in Florida? again for those people who are in the area?
Okay, we are going to be at Bloomfield Grocery, and that is in Fort Lauderdale. It is located directly across the street from Scurry's funeral home, and that is in Fort Lauderdale. So that is Bloomfield Grocery, and that is going to be this Thursday from 5 until dark. So 5 p.m. Until dark, we will be at Bloomfield Grocery, located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Okay, perfect. And thank you so much for coming over, the both of you, and taking time to do this interview. Good luck with your campaign. I hope to hear more from the political party as well moving forward. And I hope this has been encouraging to all of you guys. For those of you that showed up late, you really have to rewind this and listen to Shelly's answers to those rapid fire questions. She's very on point, and it will help you understand the sort of platform she is running and the sort of candidate she will be if she makes it to Capitol Hill. Let's try to get her there. All right, you guys.
Thank you
I will.
so much.
No problem. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good night.